So with that, for the second half of our program, we have a panel discussion entitled Unlocking Malaysia's Digital Economy Growth. Our panelists this afternoon will provide us not only depth of the data, of the wisdom, but also the breadth of insight. Because even for Malaysia, geographically, we have got the Asia side, the mainland, and also the Borneo side. So please allow me to introduce a very impressive array of speakers. First is Professor Tan Sri Dr. Noor Azlan Ghazali, the Executive Director for the Economic Action Council of Malaysia, and also a Professor of Economics of the National University of Malaysia. Prof. Tan Sri Dr. Noor Azlan has been for decades, advocating on inclusivity, sustainability of growth, and now we would like very much to see his wisdom on the digital economy platform. And then we have Mr. Iskandar Ismail, the Chief Executive Officer of Malaysia Competition Commission, because as has been pointed out by Adash and Ben just now, while we want to increase innovation and bring in, the big giants of tech to come in, we must also look out for fair competition and for inclusiveness for the smaller and the micro players. So Mr. Iskandar will be coming also from that angle. But last and certainly not least, the only rose among the thorn today, and that speaks well for Malaysia digital economy and us going for unicorns and all that stuff. I have Saudari Azita Azizan, the co-founder of Aerodyne. Now, Aerodyne, the name has been flying not only to the moon, but I think by now to Mars, because for drone as a service and all that, they are one of the best, if not the best in the world for this. And we can't say that often enough for Malaysia. But, a picture paints 1,000 words. A video gives you thousands of bytes of data. So let's play the video and you see for yourself. Okay, so impressive. Drone as a service, enterprise solutions, and I come from the paddy fields of Malaysia, way in the north of the peninsula, and I never thought that flying a small thing could really shorten the amount of workload that my grandparents has done over hours in the day. So that's among the thing. But before I go further into the discussion, the background is very simple. We want digital economy. We know it's good for our social, our cultural, our economic platforms and activities, but we want it to be sustainable and we want it to be inclusive. So all the three speakers are equipped to talk about this. However, what's the point of talking about this is if we can't have more and more successful enterprises and entrepreneurs coming through from our own ecosystem into the digital economic platform. So, Saudari Azita, just a quick start, just one-liners answer first, because I also have to allow later on a bit of a slide to be presented. But just from the horse's mouth, Saudari Azita, I'm very honored to ask you this question for a very short answer. How tough or how easy is it for Aerodyne to be where it is now and for where it wants to go in the future?
Very tough.
How tough?
Okay, well, if I have more time, because we are dealing with technology and we are dealing with people. Those two
Okay.
things are,
Yeah.
the key ingredients for our success.
So dari Azita, the reason I asked that, I met the other co-founder about 20 years ago, maybe 15 to 20 years. And, at that time, he was dabbling in creative content and live streaming of content. And from there, in less than a decade, wow, there's Aerodyne and drone as a service, enterprise solution, digital imaging, machine learning, all this. So I'm going to ask you that trajectory for you to start. But let's also look at the reality of things from the policymakers' perspective. We have My Digital, we have the blueprints and everything, we have the 5-year Malaysia plan. Prof. Tan Sri Dr. Noor Azlan, you have been advocating this a lot, but for today's audience, in a short one-liner or two-liners, how tough is it to move the digital economy for our country, for Malaysia?
Thank you, Kamarul. The good thing about Malaysia in terms of policy side is that in many cases, we are kind of almost in the front lead of recognizing the importance of something. But I must say that out of my observations throughout, the challenge for us is to execute and to get it done.
Okay.
We are
hold it there, Prof.
Yeah.
This is my challenge with you because you've lectured for a long time, so you used to give the professor's perspective. But I'm going to come back to that because we also have Mr. Iskandar. I know you have a lot of slides to present, but just before your slide, a very one-liner or two-liners only. How tough is it to ensure fair competition in a world of digital economy where the big giants are there, the word big tech and everything else. But at the same time, like Sean Go said earlier, the pasar malam also have to be on the digital platform. Saudara Iskandar, just one or two liners first.
Yes, thank you so much, Kamarul. My answer is, I must say, is very, very tough and challenging because it's a new world. Yeah. For everybody. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for all my three key speakers. That's just a teaser, a starter. And the reason I asked that question is because this is why, Tech for Good Institute is here. And this is why we have this forum today, because we want to encourage the discourse. Everybody has got to come together so that, we solve things together. Collaboration and convergence must equal offline to the convergence happening online. So before I go back to the interesting story of how did Aerodyne came about from just looking at creative content, from just looking at streaming, from just doing production offline, to where it is today as #1 in the world. And I would also, we have to know secrets from the economic planning unit. And for that, we have Professor Tan Sri. But before that, since Saudara Iskandar has a mapping of the points and how tough the situation is for us now, I only give you 5 to 7 minutes, okay? Because we have lots to cover. So over to Saudara Iskandar for a bit of a slideshow, and then we'll come back to the chat.
Yeah, thank you again, Kamarul. I just want to introduce Malaysia Competition Commission, or MyCC. If you can show the slides. Yeah. So, okay, next. Just a quick run. We are an agency of Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs. We were created basically around 10 years ago in 2011. Okay, next. We are here to protect to promote and protect the process of competition. It's very important here to understand why competition process, because we are targeting two groups, in order to achieve the objective. One is consumers, then the next one is the business and enterprises. They are, you can't separate them from this ecosystem. They can't live without each other, is it? So, but when we protect the process of competition, we give the consumers competitive pricing, more options, better quality. At the same time, businesses like Aerodyne and Grabs and others, I mean, we push them to be more, always be innovative, continue their entrepreneurship, and we want them to be more efficient so that it will support the economic growth. Next. Okay, so the roles and function of the MyCC, we are not just here to enforce and implement competition law. We are here to educate people, the public, on the competition benefits, for the consumer and also the enterprises. We have carried out many studies. In fact, Kamarul, in 2020, we have launched published our market review and on wholesale and retail, whereby in one of the recommendation that we put in that market review is that we need to develop our e-commerce market in Malaysia, and at the same time we advise ministry and public bodies on competition related matters. This is very important because we are like the bridge to other ministries. So when there's an issue on competition in digital economy, we are there to give the advice to the ministries and the public bodies. Okay, so that's all for now. We just to give a teaser, Kamarul, I have a teaser also like you.
Go ahead.
Okay, after this, I will touch on the role of MyCC in my digital plan.
Okay,
thank you.
I get you. I get what you're saying, but for MyCC to be able to even function and have a role, there must be competition. If there's only tech and players coming from the outside and there's nothing from Malaysia, then you can't even start to do your work. So with that, I would like to open the floor to Saudari Azita and share with us straight away, please, if you may, the pain, because when we read about Aerodyne, when we Google it, as many would, we won't see the scars, we won't see the blood spilled, and we won't see the heartbreaks along the way. And many, especially during the pandemic in Malaysia, are hoping for digital economy to solve all this for them because we know it's a good enabler and accelerator. So please share with us the journey from before the drone days to how come Aerodyne can now be the best in the world at what it does for drone as a service. Over to you.
Thank you, Kamarul, and for the audience today. I really feel privileged to be able to be sharing this with you guys. Okay, well, how do I start? Aerodyne story, or our story, basically. So, well, I think all the time between myself and Cik Kamarul, also the other partner, also Kamarul, we has always been fascinated with innovation. Okay, even before Aerodyne, we've been doing businesses that very much into innovation. When we offer solutions to our previous clients, so it's all about innovation. What does it mean? It is creating creative ideas, always thinking of new services, new solutions, using new technology. It has been embedded in our solution all the while. But of course, Kamarul, the founder, he's a tech junkie, an accountant with a tech junkie and love gadgets. So drone is one of his passion. And myself on the other side is into designing. I'm an architect actually. Correct. So, we also love creating new ideas. So you can imagine that we are sort of make sense to each other, in a way.
So Dari Azita, forgive me for the interjection, but because I know the other Kamarul, my namesake, the well of Kamarul. When I met him before, we were both facing the struggles of creative content production industry in Malaysia.
Sure.
But we have always been talking about tech. I remember us talking about something like YouTube before YouTube even came about online. So yes, I get your point on that. However, I would like to draw the attention of the audience listening in and watching to the fact that one of the things that you guys were doing was really shooting footages. And one of the activities of shooting footages is the aerial footages. And in the old days, you have to rent, maybe for a short gig, you have to rent 2 hours of helicopter, and then you've got to put your analog camera on top of the helicopter, and then you have to shoot down back to earth when you are flying. Very expensive pursuit, but not commensurating to the creative aspects, because a camera held manually doesn't work it. If you want to put the auto camera at the helicopter, you've got to have the DCA approval and all that. And sometimes it doesn't even follow. So I think from solving that issue to get better solution, can you link it that way? Because I think that sparks everything else. When you were coming from only the camera and producer's point of view, now you look at the things that are captured by the aerial imagery. Over to you.
All right. Okay, I think, yes, I agree with you 100%. We were in the same business at the time. Solving problem, okay? I think most of the time, clients came to us with the cost constraint.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that mean? I mean, they have to hire a helicopter for the very expensive rate and, you know, involve the safety. Of course, you remember the crew has to like, macam Batman, Superman dekat bawah helicopter.
Yes.
So we were quite lucky to have an opportunity to do a documentary to Russia actually.
Yeah.
So we were like, I mean, Kamarul has been into tech quite a while.
Yes.
I knew him that he's always on the forefront of technology. He knew what's going on around the world. He knew what drone is all about. Even before people talk about drone, people understood about what drone could do. He is already at the forefront. So he suggested to a client, so okay, why instead of using the helicopter, this is a project in Russia for 2 months, why don't we convert it into a drone? And at that time, of course, it took a while for the technology to give good footages or superb resolution as the camera has.
Okay.
But I think that at that point of time is good enough for us to do an alternative.
Okay.
So we got a chance. We went through and proved it to the client. It can be done.
Okay.
And from then on, actually, we've been using aerial footages with drone all the while.
Thank God for that, because you're now the beacon of hope for many in Malaysia. Bear with me, Prof. Tan Sri Azlan, I'm coming to you. But I just want to bridge my last point to Saudari Azita is that you said it was tough. How tough was it to move almost completely to another industry altogether, not having the financial resources needed for a high technology startup, at the same time acquiring technology that is not even around locally? From these two questions, I'll link you to Professor Tan Sri, but just give us that scenario. You have to fork out big capital to where you were at that time. Now, of course, it's small according to where you're going, but at that time it was small. It was big to where you were and the technology side.
I think I would put it this way: to be a businessman, you have to believe in what you want to do.
Yes.
That is grit and hard decision that you have to make.
Okay.
So throughout the journey has always been decision making.
Yes.
And I think the starting point is you ask every entrepreneur, ask yourself how brave you want to make a decision and move forward with what you believe.
Okay. But you started with your own funding, right? Your own money.
Yes, because we were already doing some media work at that time. So we were quite comfortable.
It was reported about 1 million ringgit. Is that fair enough? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Because if you go to a bank to ask them to finance a drone startup, no way. Prof. Azlan, that's why I'm going to you, that no way part. Many entrepreneurs will share this part, you know, and the Bain research on the platform recommended the solution as the all of government approach, you know. Imagine going to many and multiple institutions just to get a startup of drone beginning. And thanks to God that we have the co-founders who are very, very passionate what they do, even though they were not trained in what they are doing right now. So I'll give it back to you. How would our, you know, the new digital blueprint, the RMK now acknowledges all this? These are the issues that are already existing in the brick and mortar economy. Now with the digital economy, it can be an accelerator, but it can also be a gap divider. So over to you, Prof.
Yeah, thank you, Kamarul, and thank you, Azita, for sharing just now. I think what is what Azita just described is kind of the economics of doing new things. You know, I mean, for us to progress, we need to we need to create that ecosystem that will support something new, support something, you know, I mean, the tradition is that we only want to explore when someone else have done it. Okay. And that is the first thing which is wrong about trying to be an innovative nation, you know. So if we wait for people to do it, we will always be the follower. Correct. So I think on that part, I believe that government has a role to play, change and doing new things. The economic is that there is no records, there's no evidence, there's nothing standard to evaluate that, other than government has to come and play a role to create that ecosystem. So I want to put that aside first. Okay. But I want to just to put a case for moving a nation. Okay. You know, a little economics, but easy to understand. Way back in 2006, 2007, I think when Krugman got his Nobel laureate, he's an economic geography, talking about density, distance, and division. If you address this 3D, you can create growth. And now this density, distance, and division, you sum up, it becomes digitalizations, 1D. Because digitalizations can create density without limitation of physical. It can remove distance, bringing everyone in the world, planet Earth, to be connected instantaneously. And it can also create, remove all the divisions. So from that perspective, it should be something that closing the gaps. Malaysia is filled up with gaps, rural gaps, income gaps, education gaps, you just name it. We are nations with lots of gaps. And I believe that digitalizations, if we do it right, it can be something that can basically remove these gaps. Yeah. I mean, once and for all, we must recognize that beyond just digital, for development economies, they must be looking at this as a means of addressing all those gaps. You know, I spoke recently in one of the seminars. I said in Malaysia, we have New York, we have Zimbabwe. So how we address this? How can we've been talking about rural and urban for very long? Yes. And the challenge now is that how do we get these digitalizations to reach almost everywhere in Malaysia? Yeah. You know, I think those are very, very critical. And I hope that the so-called the blueprint, the reason I mentioned in your first teaser kind of things that, you know, we are good at recognizing needs. Yes. But I must say it here, let's admit, Malaysia has a serious challenge about getting it done. Okay. We are the first to start multimedia super corridor in 1995. I remember that. Yeah. But why? I mean, had we do it right, by now we are way ahead. But surprisingly, we are not connected. We don't have the development of also the so-called digital content. Remember the 7 flagship of Cyberjaya, multimedia super corridor, all are gone. Yes. So this is a problem with us. Yeah. We know, we put it on documents. Now I'm having these my digital documents. In 30 years, there'll be 3 phases. All are lined up with all the numbers. If I may just read very, very quickly. I mean, I just want to mention the numbers. When I look at all the documents in Malaysia now, I just memorize the numbers. So in the case of digital economy, we have this so-called, 6 stars, 22 strategies, 48 initiative, 28 initiative. You look at all documents in Malaysia, agriculture done 2.0. You look at everything, they will give this number, 6 stars, but no one looked at it. I'm so sorry, I must say it, because this is where the shortfalls of Vision 2020 got nothing to do with all the episodes of crisis, but it's our lacks in terms of getting things done. Okay, hold that thought, because I see, you know, Saudari Azita nodding vigorously for the points you were making towards the end. But Prof, before I go to Saudari Iskandar, so for you, what gives confidence in the solution for all this? You know, we've talked about these problems, like you said,
almost like forever. 1995 was when I started journalism. And now I'm still asking you the same questions.
Yeah.
So apparently it's not been solved. Middle income trap, even in the old economy, middle income trap, or even suppressed income, for example, and rising costs in the digital world. So where do we go from here? If you can give us sliver of hope to hold on to. You said that we must use this to bridge the gap. Can you pinpoint us one key factor that can make us successful in that?
Well, for example, that when we talk about promoting digitalizations, I mean, I heard Mahathir were talking about all those programs that they have. In my role here, I always ask a simple thing that I always try to imagine, someone in my hometown. Again, sorry, I keep on telling you, I'm using Kuala Kurau, out there. I mean, tell me, how is that guy going to digitalize his operations, his small businesses?
Okay.
Where should they go? Tell me where should they go? You go to the nearest district offices in Kuala Kurau.
Yeah.
No one there to help you. We are too centralized. We need to we need to bring this down to everywhere in Malaysia, and to make sure that it's reachable to everyone.
I get you, Prof, because Estonia only got their independence in the 90s. Already now 99% of their government service delivery are online, except for two things. And I got this here, Expo Dubai, I'll share with you later. But Prof, isn't it good to know now that when we had Wawasan 2020 and multimedia super corridor, all these things, we didn't have our own big technology startups and entrepreneurship and companies. And look at this discourse now. It's by a tech for good, which was started by Grab. And Grab has a very Malaysian DNA in the co-founders. So instead of waiting and then, seeing the policy to the execution, now we can do a public-private partnership. And we can work with the big tech. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that, I know, again, the recognition is there. Everybody says that the day where government knows all is over, government do all is over. But surprisingly, I still see a lot of government doing everything. We want to see more private coming in. Collaboration would be good. In a very positive spirit. Sometimes I'm hearing concerns over trusting each other. So we need to improve on that.
There's no better agency to ask about trust and about sustainability and about fairness than MyCC. So Saudara Iskandar, rather than repeat the old way of the MSC, and that didn't pan out well for us, we were just waiting for the tech to come. We were adopting it rather than creating it. And now, Aerodyne, blazing new frontiers in digital economy, and Grab at its core with the Malaysian minds and the Malaysian passion there driving it. Can we work together, public-privately, and then it's too easy for people to see regulators as only carrying the stick. But I think, like MyCC, you are also looking at how to encourage innovation, how to encourage entrepreneurship and startup. Over to you, Mr. Iskandar.
Yes. I must agree with Prof. Tan Sri. The trust issue. You see, it seems that for the past 10 years since MyCC was established, we did a lot of around 300 advocacy programs. We reach out to private companies and associations of traders and whatnot. Okay, what they are worried is that they see us as like like a prefect in the school. Basically telling them what to do and what not to do and whatnot. No, this is not our role. We are not here to punish people. We just want to ensure that the market behavior benefits everybody in the ecosystem. That's why if we look at the function of MyCC, we are not only here to enforce the competition law, but also we are here to educate people. So in educating people or the public, we need the private companies to come to us, be more open to us, have an open mind. What we feel, what is our opinion on what the market is, is whether it's suffering or not, whether it has these challenges and not. So this what do you call that? The private companies, I must say that some of them, they came forward to us, and you have to understand the regulators. We are policy makers. We are not business people. Yeah, and some of us are technologically challenged also. I must admit that. Yeah, so you have to come to us, share your ideas, and have an open discussion with us, so that we can understand you better. You see, in the My Digital Plan introduced by the government last year, we were given the task to review competition law, so that the growth of digital economy is conducive to fair competition while safeguarding consumers. So we need inputs from the private sectors. Yeah, we welcome any input. In fact, through our market studies in wholesale and retail, and recently we launched also on transportation. Yeah, we see that when we want to approach, the private sectors, they have this mindset that, oh, okay, they are trying to, unlock our secrets and maybe, find faults with us. No, this is not our our intention. Our intention is to get to know better the market. You see, digital economy, yeah, in Malaysia is not infant anymore. It's emerging. Yeah, but we are not as advanced as Europeans or the Americans or the Japanese, in fact. Yeah, even Singapore. Yeah, but while we are at the stage of emerging market, this is the opportunity for the public and private to work together. Yeah, for the betterment of the economy itself. You see, because digital economy is the new economy. Yeah, when we did Kamarul, I just want to share again. Yeah, when we did our market studies on wholesale and retail, we found that 93% of micro and small businesses are not online. But at the same time, 50% at that point of time in August 2020, we found that 50% of Malaysian prefers to buy online. So there's a mismatch. But at the same time, there's a rapid growth of e-commerce players, especially from outside Malaysia, coming into Malaysia. Yeah. So this somehow, and then COVID-19 came into the picture. It somehow accelerated everything. Okay, while we are grappling to educate our businesses, especially the micro and small, to go online. Okay, they found that, okay, they don't have the cost to do it. Okay, they don't have the expertise to do it. Okay, at the same time, there's a lot of policy changes. This is a very interesting point raised by Tan Sri. Yeah, policy changes. I have to agree. We have a lot of committees. We have a lot of bodies that oversees this development of this new economy or digital economy. We must have one. There must be continuity of policies. Yeah. So there should be one body, specialized body that oversees all this matter. Okay.
So, Dr. Iskandar,
yeah,
there's no better way than to ask the person that has to go through all this. So, Dr. Azita, can you weave in or comment like that from your POV?
Sure. Okay, I'm very happy to hear from both Tan Sri and Cik Iskandar. Those are very welcoming remarks from both of you of being open about collaborating with private sectors. I do welcome that very much, because I can share with you there was, we of course we face experiences that did not happen before. For example, I think just sharing with you, I can only speak on drone business, that we require agencies like JUPAM and CAM, for example. So those two agencies are very important to us, and we have been talking to them about this drone solutions since 2014. Can you imagine how long was that? So we've been talking to them and trying to educate and expose what's available outside Malaysia, because we are in this business. Of course, we have to know more than necessary. And actually, the reception is not as good. I can say that because people are not brave enough to take the new challenge.
Okay.
I think it goes back to my comment earlier of making decision and adopting
Okay.
and promoting and really support that decision.
Okay.
I think in general, our agencies, I can see that there's here and there, you know, individuals that are brave to support us.
Okay.
But as we are not seeing that the agencies are collaborating together.
Okay. Professor Tan Sri, can you just straight away get into that, because Aerodyne is one of the more exemplary one, but there are hundreds of thousands of other micro, small, and medium that might be after the first, second, and third hurdle, especially during the pandemic, not be able to go on because it's just too much for, unless it's a big corporation, they have lawyers, they have accountants and bookkeepers, but for a family startup, for example, that starts with their own money and wants to grow, how do we make things simpler? Because like I said, in Estonia, 99% of their e-government is online for all services, except for one thing only, Tan Sri. They say only divorce and kahwin and getting married, itu je cannot do online. The rest of it, you know, even registering companies. So how do you look at working together? We understand it cannot change overnight, but can we work together with the new platforms, you know, like Grab, like Aerodyne, to shape? I remember, Saudari Azita is very kind. I remember, even for me as a journalist, wanting to fly a drone, do you know I've got to fill in forms that might take me days when the breaking news is happening now. The accident happened now. I cannot wait for 3 days to fly my drone, for example. So regulation is key, but regulation has got to work with the entrepreneurs. Over to you, Tan Sri.
I mean, I have no objection at all. I'm a proponent for that. The problem with us is that, you know, when we look at, I think today the perception is working with the government is something that best possible not to. Try to stay away from the government, you know. But the moment you get into government, then you start to see all these hurdles and so on. That's why I believe that we need to promote that culture of trust, togetherness, and really believing that both sides has a function to do. Both sides must be complementing to each other. And also one thing that to note, is, especially when you mention about micro SMEs and so on, we are so used with working with and entertaining the so-called large players, you know, too big to fail kind of things, finally put us into all this. And we forgot that the way forward, I mean, I've been interacting a lot with the economies out there, the way forward for all countries, if you're talking about innovative nations, the innovation comes from a lot more from the small players than the big players. Big players as much, even the private sector, they have a lot of their bureaucracies as well. So we need to understand that how to get the nation move, but keeping the enterprising, they can be small, they can be in smaller units, but they are important. So the problem that I'm saying this because I attending the crisis.
I get you.
You know, in 97, 98, when there are the so-called too big to fail syndrome, the whole nation comes and say that we got to create these, we got to create these to solve the problems. Remember all those dana harta and all the dana jamin kind of thing. But when small players are affected, you go by yourself, go to your bank and try to convince yourself. I think this is not right. We need to have a dedicated office that really can do all. It's not that like, you know, asking them to go here and there and try to solve their problem. They are small. Even during the time of without crisis, it is already a problem for small players. More so during the crisis. So we need, you know, I've mooted these ideas before, but I know some people are objecting that. But to me, like it or not, you need a proper one place to get all those affected companies to solve their problems. Don't ask them to go here and there. That's too much during the crisis.
Like a super app for the whole of the government services.
Why not?
I'll come to that. I'll come to that.
Yes.
But Prof. Tan Sri, before we go there, I remember 97, 98, then we had the GLC 2.0 transformation, you know, to adapt, rehabilitate, rejuvenate. in the old days, when it was started, the government-linked company and government-owned enterprises had a dual role. One was to ensure that we make it in the market. The second was the social responsibility towards bringing in. It might not make commercial sense, but it make nation-building sense, you know, because that's the new economic policy. That's how we do it in this country. But now going forward in the digital economy, might we need a new thinking, you know, GLC digital 1.0, for example, in that sense, because we still need the government, that is without a doubt, but we need a government in a new way to work together with the private sector. I can't imagine big tech sitting together with one of our institution, a department or government department, because the languages might be completely different culturally. But if we have a new outfit, we used to have a mandu before, for example, to cut across all the bureaucracy. Should we need or must we need a new initiative and a new body?
I mean, I have a very strong views about GLCs.
Okay.
I think the first that you mentioned seems to be the prime and the only thing that they do now. The second is missing in their on the table.
Okay.
You know, if I want to put a challenge to GLCs, I don't want them to be the giant in digital. I want them, for each one of them, to deliver 100 new startups in digital. Not them, but somebody else. They should be the one that guiding, and they should be the one that resolving market failures and supporting the so-called small enterprises on merit base. But can each one of them, including our Mr. Kazana and everything, bring us 100 new entrepreneurs in digital startup each. Don't be the one. Don't crowd them out. You know, the problem with our GLC is that everybody wants to do whatever the government are calling for. I was here in 2006 to 2009. I mean, at that time, Tun Abdullah want to see agriculture. All the GLCs, I mean, a couple of big GLCs goes into agriculture. You know what happened? All of them failed. I can name it, but I don't want to name it.
Yeah, we know it. We in this forum know it, but
and they ignore that now.
Correct. So we're so glad that you're there, where you are, and you know all this and you're saying all this. I have never seen Saudari Azita nodding so rigorously so many times with all your points.
So give us the each GLC deliver 100 digital entrepreneur startup on merit basis.
I'll suggest to the Tech for Good Institute to carry that discourse for the next discussion. But I want to bridge to Saudara Iskandar. Saudara Iskandar, if we look at it, India, for example, when the new administration took over under Prime Minister Modi, they brought back their best brains from Silicon Valley. One of them was brought back not into government service, but into the ruling party, BJP. And he becomes their head of IT. He had 3 intellectual properties in Silicon Valley. One of the first policy influenced out of him coming back to India, and I interviewed him on this at Panko Dialogue. I think Prof. Tan Sri was also there. That any new innovation that uses public funds must have the ability, when it's done, to help at least 1 million citizens of India. That's how they want to bring it back to the grassroots, and they celebrate local innovations and grassroots innovation. For MyCC, if you only to look on paper from the EBITDA, from the market share, from the market share studies, then how do you appreciate that collaboration? Because the data for thought leadership on collaboration might not be as readily available as the data for the bankers or for the financiers. The data might not be even digitalized. It might be there at the grassroots level. So I was wondering, how does MyCC look and accumulate all this information, data, and wisdom to move on? Because what you have might not be what's out there. So there's Iskandar.
That is a very tough question, Kamarul. You see, MyCC, we depend on data from other bodies, other agencies, such as Companies Commission Malaysia, and then we also refer to Department of Statistics Malaysia, Bank Negara. I mean, they have certain data. From there, we carry out our own survey and our in-depth interviews with certain players and association and whatnot. From there, we analyze the data and information that we obtain along the way. Okay. Yes, data is very important for us to determine our next policy. Yeah. Okay. Looking forward, Kamarul. Yeah. How should we use this opportunity to ensure that the digital economy in Malaysia achieve its purpose or objective? Yeah. As I said just now, there should be continuous engagement, and then the government also must be ready and ever willing to adapt and adopt the new ways of economy. But at the same time, the private sectors and the public must know that we have certain limits. We can't always, maybe in three months time or 6 months time, and we change every time and now and then just to accommodate the needs of the private sectors. But we have to tread this carefully. We need a balanced policy whereby it can benefit the industry at the same time, the consumer.
So, Dr. Iskandar, I get you on that, but I'm just also wondering, because many of the data, like if you have the ability to go into the server farms of Google or Facebook, then you have more transparency of formulating what you want to do, but you won't be able to get that. Yes. But with our own local big tech or our locally infused big tech companies that have ties back to Malaysia, if you work with them closely and if you have that trust, then they could share that data only with you and you, the regulator anyway, and you safeguard that data for us, the consumers, and then build, things together from there, rather than wait for, a platform to be unleashed and then looking at the complaints, looking at the impact and trying to come up with policies and execution of policies. Is that doable? Can we look at that?
That will be a challenge, I must say, because one, we have Data Protection Act. Okay, that's one thing. And then secondly, the private sectors, they treat that, the information, the data that they have as business secrets. Yeah. Okay. So that's why I've been telling the association and the traders, you have to be to open up a bit. Okay, tell us what is happening on the ground and give us some numbers and information so that we can work on. Although it's limited, but I think it's more or less enough, sufficient for us to move forward, Kamarul.
But you are open to it, right? Because you would
yes, of course. Okay. The more the merrier.
Okay, there you go, big tech companies, the regulator, the institution is saying and crying out loud for that kind of partnership and trust. I'm going to go back to Saudari Azita here, because I'm going to give an extreme example. Yes, I understand the protection of data, the secrecy of business, but look, it is for public good. And, many of the things are unprecedented, just like the pandemic. And if you look at it, why would a company, doing thousands of telecommunication towers share their data with Aerodyne? Why would a billion or multi-billion-dollar energy company that's looking at wind turbine across the ocean want to share that data with Aerodyne? But if they do, and if they have trust built, they actually save hundreds of millions by giving that data to Aerodyne. So, Saudari Azita, we want to reset mindset a bit here locally, because I know Aerodyne now have a lot of companies or presence outside Malaysia, and my namesake, Mr. Kamarul, I think spends more time outside the homeland because they are more welcoming there and the businesses are growing more there. So can you share that? Because I understand the mindset of guarding things first, but in the new digital economy, it might be the other way around. Prove to me that I can get value by giving you my data, and then I definitely will give you my data.
Yeah, I'm sure. We of course, the client very secretive of their data, full stop. There's no question about it. So, but how do you work around it? They come to you because they want a solution. They have a problem. They have a problem statement. They want you to solve. So what we should be creative about is, how do you protect that data? at the same time giving the solution that is needed. I think to comment on some people are secretive about data, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure there are some mindset change need to be there. But in our case, we have been dealing with data and definitely our priority is to protect clients' data when it involves infrastructure and sensitive asset and all that. But honestly, the trust is there. The trust is there, just like Kamarul mentioned. So we need to work on the trust. I think between us, and the agencies, whoever willing to, we should sit down and then come up with a holistic solution to.
I'm sure there's a lot of supporters to that. I want to bridge that a bit more because Tech for Good Institute report with Bain highlighted some areas in which the private sector has contributed to digital and physical infrastructure building and driving consumer and also micro, small and medium digital adoption. So how do you look at that, Saudara Azita? Because like I said before, to fly the drone, there's at least 2 or 3 local authorities that need to give you approval before you even fly. But certain things happen today. For example, in the sad and tragic case of MH370, the faster we get the data, the more things we could do to help the situation. But the laws governing it need to be dealt with reason and working together with the private sector. So this is what I want to say to you, because in Estonia, they don't centralize their data. The local authorities and entrepreneurs around a local council have more concentration of data rather than the central body. Because to them, hey, my community needs my data more than you. You are in the center. You don't need to know as such. But the local authorities needs to know everything about me because I want them to deliver the greatest service. So maybe this is a model that the private sector can work together with the government on.
Talking about the emergency, we have made proposals since 2014. We went to see ministries, a few ministries. There's so much drone could do. We proposed the idea of drone being the first responder for emergency before even you have that medical help or and all that. We are the fastest. That is the fastest. Drone can do much faster and give evaluation and the next course of action. But again, regulation is an issue. We can't fly on the spot. So there could be a way that in emergency cases like that, there's such a policy that allows and very strict crisis that they can give a waiver, for example. We can work on that and then we identify clearly. I know that policymakers are very stringent about their policy that's already been agreed. But, we try to look at individual cases and put very detailed. I'm sure it can be achieved. That is actually public data. When we talked about earlier, it's more of a client data. That is more private. There is a different approach to it, especially. So again, this discussion that we should take further. I believe there is always ways. Nak seribu daya. Tak nak seribu dalih lah.
Profesor Tan Sri nak seribu daya. Profesor Tan Sri bergerak dari universiti pergi ke EPU untuk pastikan benda berjalan untuk negara. Jadi, I want to ask this question to you, having discussed what we discussed before. So what needs to change in the public sector ecosystem for us to move this along? Because digital economy is like water. It will flow where it wants to flow. If we keep blockades, it will just flow somewhere else. But I know you are just like many of us here. You want to see the water flow for digital economy. So for you, what is the most important and significant policy issue for us to address, for us to enable all this?
Well, we need to go to the basic of why and what is the role of government. We come from the era of 70s, 80s, 90s, that government tend to do all, government involved in everything, government do everything. It's time for us to cascade it down, change a model, sometimes I call it governing by network.
Okay.
That it's not that the government, just letting go everything, but government has to seriously, firmly, and committed and subscribe to the idea that they have to work together with the private sectors.
Okay.
And that means open up more doors, have more honest discussion. And I must say that, because I'm not 100% here from Putrajaya, I must say that I am hearing a lot of distrust still with respect to working with the private sectors. Whenever private sectors arrive, there's always a big question mark. Apa dia nak ni? Something like that, things like that. So let's work together. I mean, the country has been growing by both parties playing their right role. And so we need to define that. So yes, we need rules and regulation, but we do not need unnecessary rules and regulations. So you need to engage, you need to talk before you start new rules. That's why I'm sitting in my Muda punya platform with MPC. All government agencies, before they introduce new rules, they must really sit down. In last year, when we were excited of SOPs, I think there are piles of SOPs. This is a danger when you let the government to introduce rules. They love create rules. So we need to reduce these, work together, together with the private sector.
Saudara Iskandar, can MyCC do that rather than just take this whole thing of buckets and buckets of rules, regulations, and acts, distill them all together, converse them, and use sense and sensibility, taking the input from the public and the private sector. So instead of the perception that, MyCC is a pengawas sekolah or the school prefect with a big stick, then maybe we can proactively change that to they will help us enable if we've got development of trust and accountability. Saudara Iskandar.
Wow. Okay. You see, a regulator is always a regulator. I mean, they are given tasks by the laws to set up rules and regulation, the do and don'ts for everybody in the market. Yeah. Of course, if we look at Competition Act 2010, it's a very simple act. It only contains 65 sections only. Okay. Yeah. But inside the Competition Act, if you look deeper, it gives somehow the freedom for MyCC to be flexible in many ways. Yeah, that's the beauty of Competition Act. Yeah, because there is no hard and fast rule about the what do you call that, the eternal definition of competition. Yeah, it must always evolve together with the evolution or the digital evolution of in the market. Yeah. So if you say that can we do it? I mean, let it be. We lessen the red tapes. We don't introduce new laws and whatnot. But the thing is, Kamarul, it's going to be challenging because the thing is, you see, when we look at the public, when we take into account of what they are facing in their everyday life, they need directions from the regulators. At the same time, the private sectors also, they are not clear how to go about. So that's why sometimes the regulator have no choice but to introduce guidelines after guidelines and whatnot. But of course, when things are okay, I mean, we should eliminate bit by bit the guidelines and laws.
Saudara Iskandar, I get you, but to give a real life example, let's take the example of Aerodyne.
Yeah.
They are the first in the country to do what they do. For the world also, like drone as a service, solution enterprise and all this that I don't even know how to pronounce sometimes, the kind of tech they have and the gigabytes and terabytes or zillion of bytes that they have of data. So they are not actually a drone company anymore. If you look at it, they're like the data company, right? So of course there will be a monopoly, especially for Malaysia, because they're the first. And they're the one that has embarked way ahead of the others. So in a sense, they are monopoly and they will be a monopoly. So how do you work with them? Because if we just, look at monopoly as a bad thing, then we have to see them as a bad thing. But it's not the zero-sum game.
Yeah. Okay. You see, that's the thing here. There's a wrong notion of what is monopoly in Malaysia.
Correct.
According to Competition Act, be as big as you want, monopolize the market whatsoever. Okay, it's not wrong. But as soon as you abuse your dominant or monopoly position, then you will get the visit from MyCC.
So who decides that? MyCC, right?
Yeah.
So,
MyCC will take care of that.
Yeah.
But
so
of course, we have to be careful.
Understood, sorry, Iskandar. But just like a banker, if they were
Uh-huh.
to finance Aerodyne at the beginning, they will be asking for things that Aerodyne won't even be able to give, because that's not in the wisdom of the banker to know what Aerodyne is starting to do. For MyCC, that's what I'm saying. Maybe that collaboration and partnership has got to happen from now, from the beginning, so that you can see and have the latest insight into their area of high technology, because this is unprecedented waters. Blockchain, machine learning, and all this.
Yes. Blockchain, AI,
Yeah.
and others. I mean, those are very technical and complex system.
Yes.
I mean, we can learn about AI for over a period of 2 years and 3 years, but we need to learn again and again.
Okay, Saudara Iskandar, on that note, I want to go to Saudari Azita quick. And how do you see that, from Aerodyne's perspective? Because you will know things that many Malaysians don't even know, let alone the public servants and the regulators. And maybe Aerodyne now is our tech ambassador in AI, in data, in machine learning, big data, and all this, to give input back to EPU, to bodies like MyCC. How do you see that, Saudari Azita?
Okay, I think I like the point that you mentioned, that monopoly just now. Let me, elaborate a bit.
Okay.
Yes, I think we are already experiencing that, because people, it is our mindset, it's a nation mindset.
Yeah.
If you are big, everybody's talking about you. Why should we support them anymore? Because they're already big. Itu kita punya normal perception. But they feel what the other angle that we should be looking at. What if we use this big giant, or I mean, I like to think that way, to actually facilitate others. So that's always a collaboration that can happen along the way. Like us, for example, if you give it a job to a small player that cannot scale, for example, they're probably struggling to even get 10 drones or 20 drones. But if you work with us, with our financial stability, for example, or we gain the trust over time and all that, we could purchase thousands of drones. In our capacity. What do we do about that? We don't need to hire our own staff to do it. It's not Aerodyne alone, but we can work with other smaller companies.
Yes.
And that way we distribute the wealth together. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yes,
so
I get you.
I think this is a new concept. We like to promote this. And I totally, I mean, in fact, we had a discussion dengan Tan Sri. Tan Sri pun ada datang office kita hari tu. So the same thing, Tan Sri, we want to work with the other players as well. We welcome to be in this part of the big family. And we can go bigger.
Let's ask Prof. Tan Sri and Iskandar on this. Prof. Tan Sri, are you open to that?
Big is good as long as you're not abusing. That's all. Yes. I think I second what Iskandar is saying. I mean, the idea is not about the structure. The idea is about the behavior.
Yes.
You have to be clear on that. I mean, it's not about big is wrong, but the behaviors of whether you are abusive of being big, that is wrong. I mean, that's why what Azita is alluding to is actually trying to find a way of how we optimize all this. So if everything has to be small, that is not right. That's why I mentioned earlier about GLCs. They are big. But if they are acting in the way that is not promoting the rest, that is abusive.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Iskandar?
We experienced that actually.
You see, that's the thing. The public perception is monopoly is a bad thing. Monopoly is a simple word, a Greek word. It means one trader. That's all. You see, but you see it as, you know, in a very, you know, suspicious way. You see, if you look at pharmaceutical companies, they are monopolistic also in nature. You see, because they are the first mover. They created Viagra, they created all these diabetic solution and medicine and whatnot. They can hold that that market for more than 20 years. You see, but nobody complains because they save life. Okay? But here, if we talk about Aerodyne, we don't have to, you know, we can go beyond Aerodyne. I mean, there are a lot of big players out there. You see, just imagine, yeah. You see, you have to look at the benefits of big players, yeah. They give consistent supply to the market, okay, and they have the capability, they have the technology. You see, and then and when they became big, and then suddenly you start to somehow want to control them. I think that is wrong approach. Yeah, I seconded what Azita said. I mean, a big player should be more open and share their technology, share their expertise with the small players, so that, you know, the others will benefit in the ecosystem. But okay, but not all things like you, Azita. Yeah, so because they feel that I mean, we created the idea, we created the business, we should reap for our own good only. You see, not anybody else. You see, yeah. I think we should think from other perspective on how to approach this matter.
Yes.
Can I just give?
Go ahead.
I mean, it's a good. I like what Tan Sri mentioned about behavior just now. Maybe we should have a policy on behavior. You know, for the big companies not to, you know, take over the smaller ones, because I think that's what's been experiencing with the GLC, to be honest. But now, for the smaller companies, they don't trust. They are like trying to keep their secret and their tech, their ideas, because they're worried all these big companies will eat them up. So I think that is the culture that we need to move, and maybe a policy can help.
Adding to it that, Azita. Sorry, Kamarul, we taking over from you.
Okay.
No, you see, one of the initiative that my CC want to introduce is on mergers and mergers regime or merger control regime. We seen around us that, you know, big companies are taking over small companies. Then when they took the small companies, they will destroy their technology, and so that their technology will survive for the longest time. You see, so my CC is taking this initiative. We want to introduce the merger control regime in our law, so that the competition will not be lessened in the market.
Right.
Yeah. I want to give an example. You give the big pharma just now, but for COVID, even big pharma and regulators had got to work together, plus the NGOs, and that's why we have emergency use approval for vaccines. So it can be done. When the fate of the world hinges on it, now the fate of the country hinges on it. I want to go towards the end. I wish we could have this discussion for another hour. Unfortunately, no startup has managed to hack time. So I want to focus on micro, small, and medium enterprise and what are the solutions for them. It's very clear from the Tech for Good Institute report on the platform, Economy of Southeast Asia, that's the way to go. We have to go that way. So the problem is, how do we migrate the Kuala Kurau? Tan Sri is the kind, he doesn't even want to mention Taiping, but I'm going to mention Taiping. Kuala Kurau and Taiping folks, for example, to come and exactly be more innovative than the people in Klang Valley, at least digitally. So I know Aerodyne has gone through the battles. The scars are there to prove it, but you are now accelerating higher and higher, pardon the pun, for the drone, overseas. I saw the growth in, like, you know, Middle East and other areas, and that's even higher than our own country. So can you share, what do you think should be the one difference we make, especially for micro, small, and medium, to move and be another Aerodyne? Aerodyne is biased in that, so I'm going to keep Aerodyne for last. So I'm going to get Iskandar first, and then Professor Tan Sri. Iskandar.
Yeah, it's always our what do you call that, motto lah, something like that. Okay, micro and small players, they have to go online. It's for their survival. Yeah, you see, we see the trends that brick and mortars has gone 100% online. At the same time, other brick and mortars, they have at the same time online platform. And new businesses, they will just jump into online 100%. Yeah. So they should try to adapt and adopt themselves into this e-commerce world. That, you see, that's the only thing. You know, when you know, let's say you know, there's another calamity comes to us. I mean, at least they have online platform so that they can rest on that to go on in the business. Yeah. So that is my you know,
you believe
my message.
You believe the micro and small enterprises, the Kola Kuraus, the Pasar Malam can really go there?
You see, you have no choice. Like Bain and Company just now, he said just now, when we did our market studies in 2020, it was 50% of Malaysian. Now it's 70%.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So they have no choice.
Point taken. Professor Tan Sri.
You have to accept, I mean, different layers of success. I mean, if you're looking at a pure micro, less than 5 people kind of things, probably there's certain limit that they can go. At the end of it, their scale matters in terms of how far you want to go. You know, if you're thinking a more bigger target market, then you probably need to get more scale. So while we welcome the idea of enterprising, but we also have to accept the fact that there must be a mobility upward for our entrepreneurs. We do not want to end up by saying that 60% of our enterprises are micro enterprises. That is not right. I mean, we need to scale up. We need to have a mobility upward and new players coming in from down and so on. And digitalization is no longer an option. If you're not on it, I mean, it's just like running on a treadmill. If you don't run, they will throw you out. As simple as that. So you need to be part of it. And I strongly believe that we need to be less Putrajaya centric. We need to localize, go down. Kuala Kurau do their thing, Taiping do their thing. Not everything in Putrajaya. Don't wait for Putrajaya.
Okay.
Thank you.
Decentralization, Tan Sri?
It is. I mean, it's going good. I mean, this is a new approach of government of the future, governing by networks. You don't do things no one in Putrajaya understand Mersing. No one. People in Mersing understand Mersing better.
Yeah. Or Lubuk Antu.
You need to empower them. You need to empower them, support them, you know, so that they take ownership. No, I mean, I just give one simple example, which is nasty, but let the people in Bangi to choose their own headmaster lah.
Okay, fine. Education is a topic for another day. We won't be able to close. I heard that the Yang Berhormat Minister is already in the room, and maybe he listened to what you said just now, Professor Tan Sri. So that's good. He is
going to exit. My apology at the I need to exit. Yeah.
Fine, but I've given you the final say just now. So, Saudari Azita, please close this discussion for us today. Same question to you.
Okay, I think I would promote memudahkan lah. Okay. You know, the agencies and the regulators make it easy. You know, memudahkan. So like what I give an example when we wanted to do our solution dengan pesawah. You can imagine how to convert them the idea of using drone. It's very difficult. The mindset susah nak tukar. But what we did, do it for free. Doesn't matter. Try it for them. Bagi je cuba. Pakcik minta ladang, minta sikit satu plot sawah ni, kami cuba dulu. Pakcik tengok result, ada yang pakcik suka, pakcik ambil. Pakcik tak suka pun tak apa. You see, this is a different way of approaching. So make it easy. So even the regulators, I would also, you know, even JUPEM, CAM, but now they are getting, you know, friendlier,
Okay.
friendlier, and I hope the change happen much sooner.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
collaboration and make it easy.
Correct. I love what you said, make it easy. I understand your pain with, just getting approval to put a drone up, but it's not about the drone, it's about the data and helping bridge that data. And I, I'm quite well known in the state corporate list, and there's a lot of sawah padi. When I was young, one people were doing 10 acres, now 5 people doing 10 acres, orang dua. So we definitely need your drone. So I'm going to lobby you to go down to Perlis maybe, and I will help you bridge and get the sawah padi farmers to give you their data. So thank you so much to all my panelists and speakers. Thank you so much to Professor Tan Sri, Dr. Noor Azlan. Thank you so much to Saudara Iskandar of my CC. Thank you so much. Of course, to me, the most celebrated for me today is the entrepreneurs and the technopreneurs. And Saudari Azita, as the co-founder of Aerodyne, has made all of us in Malaysia proud because she, together with my namesake Kamarul, has proven that you can move from where you learn and study that has nothing to do with big data, machine learning, and AI, and aerial imagery, to now one of the best, and in certain pillars, the best in the world, especially in drone as a service. Thank you and congratulations.